What's up, everyone? We're finally made it to Kona. I'm super excited to be here. We're going to be putting out vlogs and podcasts every single day. Each episode is going to be kind of special and unique. These are only possible by Bicycle, BYCYCLE.com. They are the largest online bike retailer for used bikes. They have over 20,000 bikes in inventory. If you're looking to buy a new used bike or looking to sell an old bike of yours, they have gravel, road, and triathlon bikes. If you're a professional, want to sell one of your bikes at the end of the year, more than welcome to do that. Any bike you're wanting to sell, just use code PROTRYNEWS and they will arrange a carrier and a bike box for you, ship that out, special insurance for the user, and then also buyer's insurance for you guys. So use code PROTRYNEWS. This vlog series is only possible because Bicycle made it possible for us to be here. The whole squad's going to be here. It'll be Mark, Pat, myself, and Talbot, all putting out episodes and content for you each and every day. Enjoy.
And welcome to the Pro Tri News Kona Ironman World Champs post-race review show. Take 2. We are back around this table because we just recorded an unbelievably good episode with a beautiful view. It's now raining, etc. With Craig Alexander, triathlon royalty, 3-time winner of this race. Unfortunately, there was a slight problem with the audio. The audio file was corrupted. Now, we're not blaming any one of us at this table in particular, but Kyle's in the doghouse.
So we did a reset. We went and had tacos. We're going to recollect ourselves. Kyle shed a tear.
Almost jumped out of the car.
We had to stop him jumping out of the car, yeah.
We're going to record this right now.
And then when we were eating tacos, I just thought about just going onto the beach and just keep swimming till I can't go anymore.
It's a shame because Crowy's wonderful, isn't he? He's a really insightful, thoughtful guy. He did a great job. We sat in the sun with him for an hour and a quarter. We invited him up because we all like to have a beer with Crowy as well. Unfortunately, I think this is the first time since we started doing this. We had some dodgy audio at the start, but we've never failed.
Yeah, that was a tough.
We did lose a Sam Long episode once.
Yeah, we do have a missing Sam Long episode.
That's all right.
And we have an episode that we recorded that has never been released. So
I wish that was the one that I got cancelled on, but unfortunately not. Right, so the race, let's get into it. So the race was magnificent. If you weren't watching at home, the podium was Patrick Lange, took his 3rd Ironman World Championships win. Magnus Ditlev battled hard from some low points in the race to take 2nd. And maybe surprisingly, most of all, Rudy von Berg got a 3rd. Wonderful race.
No, it was a tremendous race all around. I mean, I think, the big talk, right, is we had the big 3 before the race. We had Christian Blumenfeld, Sam Laidlow, Magnus Ditlev. It was essentially unanimous. If you went around and you were asking people, who do you think is going to be on your podium? They all said, look, it's going to be some version of those 3. We all kind of talked about, we thought that one of them was going to eject themselves from the race.
For one reason or another. People blow up, they have whatever.
We certainly didn't see a world where 2 of them were out of the race.
Like completely out of the race as well.
Yeah.
At least I guess Sam Laidlow really asserted himself in the race, got himself a bike course record, but likely we think to his own detriment. So just to canter through like kind of how the race unfolded, the talk was Milo Kuhnhaas would lead out the swim, right? Yeah. That was sort of unanimous as well. And he did just that. He hit the start of the swim real hard. But then about halfway around the swim, Sam Laidlow decided this pace ain't hot enough for me and put a pretty quick move to like take the lead and actually gapped Milo for a while. I honestly thought at that point, Laidlow is not really going solo from halfway around the swim, is he? And that move did put a lot of people under pressure. Milo Kunis came back round, they took the lead, and it took the lead group down to a mere 19 people out the swim together. Wild.
I mean, look, this is I go back in our pre-show we talked about. We thought there were going to be, we thought there was going to be a super front pack and then a large front group, and effectively it just turned into a group, a large group of 19, right? I thought the big surprise is that Sam Laidlow came out of the water second, but he jumped to a very early and commanding lead on the bike, and then took it from there.
Yeah, I realized when we tried this podcast the first time, I realized we moved on from the swim for covering like the surprises out of the swim. Surprised to see Gustav not in that group.
Yeah.
a big early
Definitely.
indication that this was not going to be a great day for Gustav.
Yeah.
I mean, surely then another surprise was that, could we call that a lifetime best swim for Patrick Lange?
Yeah, he's
No.
fourth out of the water.
You can't call that lifetime.
No,
best.
you don't think so?
Well, because when in 2019, for instance, when he dropped out, he made the cut in the swim group
Right.
with Jan, Alistair Brownlee, Daniel Backergaard.
Javier.
No, this was in the Ironman. Josh Hamburger.
Yeah.
And Tim O'Donnell. That
Right.
was the front six, and he
Yep.
made that group. So it's more of a return to the swimming form we saw of Patrick a few years ago, I think. Magnus Ditlev missed the group, but only in the last 800. So he was in that group till about 3K, and he lost about 1:15, which I think was still a good swim for him.
Yeah, he wasn't down too many minutes.
No, I mean, and then certainly, I'm trying to think who else we saw in there. You had the likes of Lionel Sanders that Talbot wasn't maybe as confident in his swim, but for him to come out just a hair over 5 minutes down, I mean, that's actually for Lionel, that was setting him up for a great race.
Yeah, where did Jackson Laundry come out? Did I just see he was out?
Yeah, he was in
the
between the
threes,
Lionel
yeah.
and
Okay, in
other
that
group.
third group.
Yeah.
And then where was Trevor Foley out?
Trevor was 55 minutes, so 7 and
a bit
change.
minutes down. Kind of what we expected from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you're right. Laidlow absolutely drilled the start of the bike. He had a 15-second gap before he'd even left town. In fact, it was more than that by the time he went back down the hill. The chase group was sort of working. Actually, Patrick Lange sort of pulled the first little bit for the group. Then he didn't do much else all day, but he took on Polani like a complete rocket ship.
Yeah.
Got that group going. And then there was the rest is history for that bike split. Laidlow went catatonic on. I mean, ridiculous.
No, I mean, you and I were sitting at 11K in the bike at the top of the, how do you pronounce it? Kuakini Highway?
Yeah.
Turnaround there. And he looked focused, and he had one mission. I mean, he was going forward as fast as he could go. He wasn't looking behind. And the gap had really already gone out to, a minute 15 plus. And then Magnus was just right at 2 minutes behind at that point. And so that large group, we saw them all make that turnaround. You and I both looked at each other at that point, and we said the same thing. I'm like, did you see what I saw? And you go, did Christian look like shit? And I said, yeah. And you could just see it in his face.
Yeah, you could see the way he took the corner.
Yeah,
like he was the worst around that corner. He looked under pressure, as you said earlier. I think even that point, it just didn't look like Christian was firing and chasing. He certainly wasn't chasing from the front. But that pack was big still. Like that chase pack was big. And then they obviously roll out onto the highway. Laidlow is just drilling it. I mean, he is just putting time in. And the chaser, of course, was Magnus Ditlev. Yeah. And eventually he catches the group and he sits in for a little bit, gets a quick refresh. And one of my favorite moments is the whole race is the front on camera shot where Ditlev decides he's going to go past and everyone shits themselves. And people pull out the lines. They think that's the race going. They try and get on the wheels. And then it's just like emptying a bag of cats.
It was total chaos. It was my favorite moment of the race to watch. So, we watched here at the house, the swim and the bike, and we were all just like, this is happening. It's fully on. Like, it was just, we've never seen chaos like that. Look, there'll be a lot of people that will look at that moment and say, should there have been a penalty? But I looked at that moment and thought, hey, this is actually, we're seeing just true racing right here. And people are trying to make decisions. They're under pressure. Blumenfeld was pointing to get back in line in front of Stepniak. And Stepniak was like, absolutely not. And so you saw these athletes in a full-blown moment of panic, confusion, and
chaos. It was pretty much chaos.
Yeah, trying to get through that. So,
I think that Stepniak thing is worth mentioning because that was amazing. So Christian he's pulled out, right? And they're still going uphill and he can't get to the front because the front is now chasing Magnus. So he's alongside the line. He's got to get past and keep moving forward, but he just can't. So he's basically bartering with Stepniak.
Yeah.
Like, please let me in. And Stepniak's like, nah, mate.
But props to Christian for not doing it, because if he would have, he would have got a penalty for slotting in.
But then he burnt matches, right? And he really burnt some matches to go to the front.
So when Magnus made that advance on the race, just speaking to him afterwards, he said, look, he's like, I got on the back of that group, and I thought, shit, like, how am I going to pass this entire group and not get a penalty here? What am I going to do to make sure I avoid it? Right.
Turns out the answer is 500 watts.
Yeah. So he did that. And in that moment, there was Mark and I were debating on the time, but somewhere around 15 or 20 minutes where Christian Blumenfeld did in fact go with Magnus.
Yeah, 10-15. Yeah, I reckon so.
And in that period, they put a minute into into that large group. And that was the moment that we all, I think, will live in triathlon history, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think actually the Guinness World Record books for largest vomit, the most volume of vomit ever from an individual in one sitting.
I mean, I just feel like this was one of those moments that will help triathlon go viral because I'm hearing about it in so many other arenas that I'm adjacent to.
The sheer volume that he drops on the road. He must have, we were talking about this, like he must have just had so much fluid on the bike by that point. So maybe he swallowed a bit of seawater. Maybe he's done 2 or 3 bottles in.
How many times do you think it could have filled up Robert's little bladder thing he had on the front of his bike, his little fuselage? It probably could have filled it up 3 times. It was probably 6 liters of vomit. I
think it looks more, doesn't it? But you're right. It was 3 liters.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny because today I was talking to Magnus and his buddy Casper, and I just said, man, what do you think is going on with KB and the vomiting? I go, that was crazy. And Magnus goes, maybe it was just because he did 420 watt for too long.
Absolute baller.
So, I mean, that was
quite a good Magnus impression.
You started spending a lot of time with him, Pat. You're rubbing off.
So, I mean, I just think that's one of those moments from a world championship that we'll never forget, right? And we knew that was going to come home to roost later with Christian, and we'll talk about that when we get to the run. But, I want to give Sam Laidlow credit where it's due. I mean, Mark and I were talking about this last night. His ability to hold that position is incredible.
I'll be honest, the conversation came around because there was yet more people online implying doping to Sam Laidlow. And I pointed out that he does so many things well that doping doesn't do for you.
Yeah.
Swim technique, he's flawless.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely flawless. And I cannot stress how hard it is to have the discipline to hold a position like his without looking up, without looking down, his neck in the same place, shoulders rolled for 4 hours straight. I mean, he's out the bars.
3 hours and 57 minutes and 22 seconds.
Which is, we'll come back to, is completely obscene. That's really hard discipline, graft, focus, everything.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly, I'm thinking about this now. We didn't talk about it in the first show that we recorded, but the benefit that
why don't we just put the first show out?
All right. There's number one.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a beer and start drinking every time we say that.
The biggest piece is that, he doesn't, we've heard now from this big group is that the guys were really getting beat up from the accelerations. And so the benefit of being locked in and be able to go from the front, we normally speak about the draft penalties. You're not susceptible to that if you're leading. However, I think what we saw yesterday was you've got a huge benefit if you're not having to do those accelerations within the group.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's actually the 3 fastest bike splits came from solo riders, right? So it came from, we'll give Trevor Follier, he'd crashed right before the end, but it was
Leon Chevalier,
Sam Laidlow, and it would have been Trevor Foley. And then Robert Callan did a lot of it kind of solo. That there is something to be said for that solo ability. What the pack doesn't necessarily go faster. What it does mean is some people can use less energy to go at a time they wouldn't otherwise be able to do on their own.
Yeah, and I do, and we'll touch on the push to the 20-meter draft rule. But I spoke to an athlete that's not mine on Friday night at the bike check-in, and they said, Pat, with Race Ranger being in the pack, it's so easy because now they've got lights that can indicate how they're close but not too close, and that provides, and now with the new speeds, the draft effect that's there is significant.
Yeah, I think the bit about it is that actually most people don't cheat when they're on, this isn't Race Ranger, and they actually sit more like 15 meters back for a bit of caution. The few people used to cheat, right? And now they can't. But what it does mean is all those honest riders are actually now way closer. And that's exactly what he was talking about. We saw that. We talked about this, the drafting bit a bit. I didn't think it was actually too bad. I thought the motor.
No, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like we saw Martin Van Riel's post this morning, and I think I agree with his point. However, the photo that he used to make his point
was deceptive.
Wasn't fair because it's in those head-on shots, it's always going to look like they're drafting. But when they do a shot from behind, especially from the helicopter, I mean,
They look spaced out as much as they've been spaced out for the last 30 plus years.
Yeah, I don't think that there was really any quote unquote excessive. I just want to say drafting because they were within the rules of the Race Ranger yesterday.
Yeah, and Talbot hit heavy on the first show we recorded.
Yeah.
But all the pros want to go to 20 meters. We kind of agree 20 meters. I agree 20 meters because I think the pace of the sport has moved on so much that the draft effect as a percentage of the power saved increases. I don't want to go to no drafting because then I think you have to, in effect, shorten the bike. Like there is an element of if you go to 50, it changes the dynamic of what triathlon is, you know. But I think all the pros want 20 meters. We want 20 meters. It is a significantly less draft, etc., etc. Race Ranger allows you to police it. So we're going to keep pushing Ironman on it. But that's the last we'll say of it.
I think there's only one person that got drafting penalties yesterday, and he got 2 of them. Daniel Backegard.
He got 2.
2,
He got 2.
Oh, I only thought he had 1.
Yeah.
So what do we think? The one thing that I noticed yesterday in the race was the evolution of the special needs bag, taking it, not taking it. Guys
took it. Magnus didn't. I don't think Patrick did.
Guys just bringing so much more liquid on their bike and then just using the neutral bottles through. I mean, is that, I look at yesterday's race and you start to think tactically for some of the, for the women racing next year, right? And what did we learn from the special needs bag, I guess, in 24? Is it relevant in 25?
Yeah, I think so. I think it shows you should have it as an option and utilize it as dynamic dependent. So like if you're laid low out front and you've got 3 fresh bottles in there, they're slightly more aero because they're a little bit bigger. They fit the cage in the right way. They're less likely to bounce out. Maybe you have the flavoring you want and you can have some extra carbs in there, whatever. And you're out front and you've got 2.5 minute lead. Well, why not take your bottles? But if you're in that group with Lange, etc., you don't have any chance to get them sometimes. And if you're the only one that gets them, you're getting dropped. So I still think it's a useful thing, but I think you're naive to plan on it as a must-have.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Certainly the guys who used those big gears yesterday, I think was the other big thing I saw. Like that's going to be a theme moving forward.
I liked that Magnus said he regretted the big gear choice most for the last 20k when he'd blown to pieces, and it wasn't the hill, it was the flat bit at the end.
He said, "I don't think I left my 30 very much." He was joking, but yeah, I mean that's certainly what it felt like, right? So
I think they worked. If you can push it, why wouldn't you ride it?
Yeah, I think it's just again, we had Crowy on earlier. He talked about doing a low 420 bike split, and to think that in 15 years they've shaved off 25 minutes from the bike here is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, as a percentage, that's just completely obscene. And a lot of that is technology, a lot of it's power. But what we're missing, and we haven't talked about, was Sam's bike just too fast?
I think what I want to talk about now is when the race comes here in 26, I don't think he's going for a 356.
I don't think he's going any faster. He shouldn't.
But I think Sam can win this race.
Going to 4 hours?
If he...
Even slower.
Yeah.
Because he was right at the front of the race, like Leon, etc., that had closer splits to him.
Leon was 4:01.
Yeah, what did the group behind? Like, what did Lange ride?
Lange rode a 4:06.22.
Right. So in reality, Lange ends up running a 37:30, right?
Yeah.
If Laidlow goes 4-5 minutes slower and runs a 2:40, he wins.
Yeah.
So then you're just if you're in Sam's camp, you're just deciding, do I want to back myself with a 3.5 minute buffer instead of a 7.5 or 8 minute buffer?
I think the problem slightly is though he doesn't actually know what the gap is perfectly all the time.
Yeah, of course.
So, but it's the effort level. It's surely he knew.
Do you think he may have overlooked Patrick though? Do you think that he was just so concerned about what Magnus was going to ride he needed that?
That's a great point. They've all said that, right?
Yeah.
So Magnus says that he felt like he had to chase Sam and it ruined his race a bit. Sam felt like he had to get away from Christian and Christian thought he had to go with Magnus. And in the end, they all boxed themselves in the corner, and the only one that toughed it out was Magnus.
Yeah, and let's remember
Patrick,
the course.
No, so Magnus toughed it out of that group.
Yeah,
Second
Magnus
was
of
still a
that
good
group.
result.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's remember though, the other really tricky thing about this venue and especially Nice too, as an athlete, you're not getting any information, right?
No.
And so in the event of when Magnus was pushing, hindsight's always 20/20, but maybe if you're in Javi, you say, look, Christian's just been throwing up. He's out of the race. Like maybe just slow down for a little bit, right? Or like he would have had different information. He would have had maybe a different race plan if you're getting information live. And the reality is you have to do so much problem solving, whether you're Sam Laidlow, whether you're Leon Chevalier. You have to do a lot of thinking for yourself in this game. And you don't have clear and concise information as you wish you would.
Yeah, it's true. So before we go on to like talk about the run, how good was Leon Chevalier on the bike as well?
It needs to be noted. Leon Chevalier left T1, snapped his rear bottle cage off.
I forgot about that.
Lost all of his whatever he had planned back there. I don't know if it was nutrition or just water, but
Right.
he couldn't have it. He couldn't hold it.
I think it was nutrition.
I thought it was White Claw.
The other thing is when he woke up in the morning and walked out to his bike, he went to turn on his Garmin. Garmin was dead, like dead, broken dead. So he did that whole race blind and without the fueling that he wished he had.
And he went 401?
4:01:38.
4:01:38. New bike course record would have been comfortably.
Yeah.
He looked so dialed. And an interesting thing about Leon is that the only time he's ever been to a wind tunnel was to test his wind suit. He's never done position testing. He's never changed out components, nothing like that. He's just looked around. What is it, Pat? He's done a seek, something, discover. What's your cliche?
Look, search, discover. LSD experience.
So the reality is that he's done all of that by essentially just peer learning and also showing it's not actually that much rocket science. Like he looks flat, narrow, helmet integrates with the flow. He looked amazing. He held position really well. It helps that he again was on his own, right? He's not having to look up at who's in front. He's just drilling the pace.
Yeah.
What other surprises did we have during the bike? What are we missing?
Like Braden Curry, people like that, just going backwards out of that front group.
Yeah.
Jasper Svenningsson, like I mean, he'd been throwing pop shots all week on Strava, and he had a he rode a 4:33:18.
Did he have a puncture? He had to have had some sort of.
He had a pretty tough swim. Swam 52:28.9.
Sorry, what did he ride?
He rode a 4:33:18.
I rode that here. And the week before, he broke it on Strava.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Right,
just
there's
laid out,
like,
something happened. It could have been
seriously wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a shocker of a day for him.
The big one for me, the standouts on the bike was like a Ben Canute. You know, he rode really, really well. He paid for it. Yeah. But he was up there. He was in the mix.
He hung tough.
You know, you could say it's all for naught, but I think, that was a great.
Marquardt was on the front drilling it.
So I think we haven't really talked about Patrick on the bike because we did that earlier.
Yeah,
so we're not talking about it. So I want to do a lap on Patrick on the bike. And that's another phrase I've caught for you. I want to do a lap on Patrick on the bike. I've seen already, he just sits in the pack. He rides in the pack. He doesn't sit in the pack. The way he came down the hill and Callan's on the front and the pace is so high, Callan's 20 kilos heavier than him, flying down the hill, and Patrick sees the gap start to go. And we thought, oof, this might be it for Patrick Lange. But then no, he keeps his head down, rides really hard, uses the concertina ring effect on the hill to his advantage and flies onto the back of it. And then he did it again into town. And it was a really laughable moment that for some reason people started attacking the group before the right turns town when you go through the supermarkets. And Patrick was like, what are you doing? We're about to start running. So he let the group go. And he said to me last night, and I just thought in my head, like, we have 6 90-degree turns. The group will slow through them. I'll just send the turns and I'll be on the back as soon as I get back in transition. And lo and behold, as you're all into transition, Patrick's in that group. He covered gaps as well, Pat.
Yeah, look, I mean, Patrick, his racecraft yesterday on the bike was second to none. And then I think too, like Mark, you and I both live with some dominant runners. Like when you get to the end of the bike, there's a sigh of relief that's like they breathe and they go, okay, now it's my time. Like the swim in the bike was fun, but now we're going to get to do my favorite sport. And I think he was probably, he was G'd up for that because he's like, look, now I'm in the mix and we're going to get to run. So I think he had a feeling of what he was going to do, and he was able to express that on that last bit on the bike. And he knew that if he wasn't getting dropped, he knew he was going to have a great day.
Yeah, and I got to say, to also for his performance-wise compared to himself, that was an Ironman PB for him, not Kona, Ironman PB. It was a 16-minute improvement on his fastest ever time on the bike here.
Yeah. And to just give our listeners at home just some understanding of, it was not the hottest Kona yesterday by any means,
but it wasn't the coolest either.
It wasn't the coolest either. It was an insane day. We knew. What I left was, are we gonna in 26 when the men come back here? Are we gonna be talking about the bike just going insane, or what are we gonna be talking about that? Because it felt like there was so much. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy because the men were so focused on.
I think they focused, yeah,
but
I think so many of them cocked it up. Right, these are the run times, the fastest run times. A 2:37.34 pedestrian for Patrick, very fast for this course. The second fastest run was a 2:45, second fastest. Anne Howell's done a 2:48 here or something, and then a 2:40, another 2:45, 2:46. The 10th fastest run here was like a 2:52. That's women race winning that, So I just think they kind of need to go back to seeing as a bit of a full triathlon, because there were people running through to the top 10 that had actually really average runs. They just hadn't cooked themselves on the bike. Run for show, bike for dough has never felt more true.
Sorry, the only other name that I really had in my head for the swim and the bike that was a non-factor yesterday was Robert Wilkowicki.
Yeah, weird.
So I thought that he was going to have a little more influence on this race. And early on, again, something happened, and we don't have clear information if it was a bad day, mechanical, what the issue was.
Yeah, I don't
surprise
know.
For me.
And then Trevor Foley, as we mentioned on the bike, he basically got himself to within 300 meters of transition, having made up a lot of that 7-minute deficit to that front group. And he's a runner.
Yeah.
So he's going to unleash. And apparently he had taken his feet out of his shoe. Excuse me. He'd taken his feet out of his shoes, and the shoe rolled over, caught under his bike, and just launched him in the air.
Yeah.
And when Crowe turned around and saw it, he was just in the air, landed hard. They convinced him to get up and get into transition, but he was just battered, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to see, and it's not to take away from anyone's performances yesterday, but if you do start doing some maths, you're looking at a top 10 in his debut here in Kona. And so
if he can run, and a lot of people couldn't run, and he rode extremely fast. So honestly, I imagine he'd around a 2:45 as well.
Yeah, you'll never know. We'll never know in the end. So
before we get onto the run, I want to think about Nice in 25 for the men. This year, it seemed to be a big evolution of bike tech. What do we think we're going to see for the bike tech in 25 for this race? What's going
for the women?
No, for the men
in 26.
No, I'm saying next year for the men in Nice.
Oh, okay.
What's going to be the big thing?
If it's going off current bike purchases, they'll all be on gravel bikes, because every fucker's got a gravel bike these days. I think time trial bikes have got to the point where they are very strong. They're very much struggling to find aero gains on the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, actually, if we're really honest, a rim brake Cervelo P5 versus the disc brake Cervelo, the aero gains across the frame set are non-existent.
Yeah.
So what you find, the development comes from adding storage, adding access to fluids and stuff like that. And then, like the Specialized did, the Cervelo did, take some weight off a time trial bike. Yes, weight isn't important in time trialing, but it's still a factor. So I think you'll see maybe there's a bit more focus on weight for the climbs. It's not particularly steep. Aero is still the most important, but how do you deliver the same aero package for saving the weight? More integration, I think. I think you'll see more integration of fluids within the bars. So rather than people having to bolt on bottles and stuff between the bars, I think you'll start to see that becoming one piece, etc. That's a guess. Head had a good day.
Oh, second and third.
Second
and fourth.
Second and fourth, and first and second fastest bike splits.
Yeah.
We saw Annie Head. Me and Pat walked straight up to him, and Carl walked straight up, and she said, "God, you guys need to work on your wheels, don't you?" And this is when Laidlow's got a 9-minute lead off the bike.
That's awesome. All right. There were some big surprises on the run. I'd say the big upsets right away, obviously, was as expected. Christian Blumenfeld really started to struggle when he got up to the Queen K. Gustav Eden didn't have the 2:36 form again, like we saw 2 years ago.
And his race resulted in a DNF, basically just laying. I think Talbot was being a bit dramatic when he saw him. They said he was unconscious.
He said he was unconscious on the ground, was what he told us.
But then they were partying in the hotel room later, so I don't think he was.
It was fine. I thought, reflecting on it, it was hard. It was hard to understand. It was hard to see because Laidlaw had such a big gap. But when I saw him at, roughly 1.5K into the run, I thought he looked like he was already struggling.
Really? You thought he looked bad early?
Yeah, I thought he just, but it was hard because he kind of has his run style is a bit unique. So it just looked to me like he was going slow. I wasn't reading into that because he had such a big buffer, but now reflecting on that, it's like, okay, he was actually hurting.
Yeah, I mean, Lange took out, but it's hard to say because actually he ran okay for the first 6K. Lange ran a minute into him in 3K, but that's because Lange went out at 2:28 pace.
He was flying.
Lange he got up the top of Polani, still holding 2:28 pace. What the is that?
Yeah, insane. And for those that haven't been to Kona, Polani is a big hill.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the alley drive goes up and down. It's got that hill in it. Like, it's not an easy run course at any point. But then, Laidlaw was losing about a minute every 3K. So Lange got told very early on by his team way more useful details, but he also got told you'll catch him at 26K.
So, I think, again, rolling out, I was at that 1.5K mark to start, and somebody like Magnus and Rudy von Berg looked, again, quite pedestrian in there where they were. I was nervous what the day was going to hold for them both, and they certainly started to work through the field. And then once they got up to the Queen K, it seemed like they really found their stride. Leon Chevalier had a really early, we'll call it, lead within that chase group.
Yeah, he looked great for the first 20K.
And he had effectively moved into second place. And then in the energy lab, he really had a tough time and got passed by Magnus and Rudy. And then everyone kind of held their positions the rest of the way in. So Patrick Lange extended his lead. Magnus extended his lead to Rudy. And then, Leon held effectively in fourth.
Patrick was hurting, and he got from his team, he asked them, the first person he saw when they were out in the Queen K, he said, how much can I lose per K and still win? And his team came back to him and said, at the time when he was running really fast, you can lose 27 seconds per K and still win, which is like God-sent information. So I think he obviously then metered his effort on the way home. He died off a bit, but he still extended his lead because even though Patrick Lange was dying, everyone was dying much more around him. And he took a win by 7 minutes in the end.
Correct.
I mean, that's an outrageous margin. It's not in Kona's gone by. That's not that surprising in a Hawaii race, but it is in the field we had on the start line. And with the depth of talent we thought, I didn't think we'd see a 7-minute win.
No, not at all. The only crazy gap that was even predicted was Talbot thought that Christian Blumenfeld would win by 5 minutes. But for the most part, everyone almost thought that it was going to come down to a running race.
So we've started on Christian Blumenfeld. Oh, do you want to do more running?
The only thing that I was left a little bit disappointed about yesterday was I thought we were going to see a shoulder-to-shoulder battle with someone, right? And we didn't get that. We didn't.
It happens all look at Nice. Everyone thought we'd get a shoulder-to-shoulder battle, Kat and Laura, and then 10K and it blows apart. It happens all the time in triathlon and long distance now. A shoulder-to-shoulder race is so rare.
Yeah,
and it's because they're just nuking each other these days on the bike.
Yeah, there's nothing left. So I think that's the only part that I would be left a little bit, bummed about from watching the race. I think the big moments that we saw were obviously Christian Blumenfeld vomiting, Sam Laidlaw walking the aid stations. I saw that clip.
I mean, he said to me at 20K, I'm just done. No, it wasn't even 20K, 15K. Yeah. When we saw him on the bike, that's about right.
Yeah, that's about
He's like, I'm done. I'm just done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long way to go to know you're done.
Yeah. My favorite clip of Sam Laidlaw was when he walked through the aid station and saw a full 2 liter of Coke, grabbed it, took a couple sips, capped it, and put it back on the table.
Yeah, I just hope they carried on using the Coke. Sod it. I should have this on Hot Take, and I've just remembered it, and I said it to Carl at the time. It really annoys me, some of that.
The classness.
With the pros, it's sort of okay, grabbing the big things, especially if you're winning the race. Like, you do what you want. The amount of age groupers, they're
We're
like
doing it.
30th place age groupers who think they're the shit, like I do sometimes. You know, they think they're the real shit at the front of the race. Grabbing the giant 5-litre bottles, pouring it half over them. Like, there's 2,000 people behind you. Come on, mate.
If everyone did it.
If everyone did it, it just doesn't work.
No,
you know, it's
no.
not what the race is scaled for.
Yeah.
I don't think they shouldn't have them on the table, especially by that point.
Yeah. For the professionals, it's understandable though.
Yeah, and again, it's understandable because the work rate is so much higher.
Yeah.
Like the heat production is so much higher that it becomes dangerous for the pros.
Right.
But like if you're cruising around a 330, it's not cruising, but you don't need to be grabbing 5-litre bottles. Like anyway, whatever.
So
What were you going to say? What was Mark going to say about KB?
Oh, I was going to just start rolling into hot takes already.
Hit it. Let's go.
did we finish overall? So Patrick Lange, first place. Magnus left second. Rudy Von
We
Berg
didn't
third.
touch Rudy. Let's do Rudy.
So Rudy had I would say, incredible race. He got the American record last year at Ironman Florida. He's raced well in the heat at Ironman Texas, and then has now been with McCall Eden for 2 years under his tutelage after having a tough Kona, I would say, in 2022. Stuck with the program and delivered and got a podium here this weekend. So went 7:46 even.
Yeah, I mean, the three guys that were here being coached by Mikhail at the time in 2022, one of them is back to third place, one of them serving a doping ban, and the other one's Lionel, who went off and did his own thing, and it doesn't seem to have paid off. I think Rudy's just having a great progression.
Yeah.
I think his training always seems pretty sensible and moderate. His racing program seems well thought out. He's a consistently good athlete. I like that people will go, oh, Patrick Lange is a pack rat, just sits in. They won't mention Rudy.
No, but Rudy was in the pack.
That's exactly what Rudy did as well.
Both of them had spent time in the front, though. At some point in the race, Rudy and Patrick were at the front of the race. At any point between mile 1 and all the way up to 112.
Yeah, it was a great performance from Rudy. A few other honorable mentions in that top 10 I want to shout out. I want to give a big shout out to Mino Koolhaas in fifth.
I'm so glad you said that. What a nice guy is he. We really enjoyed chatting to him. What a result.
Yeah. I want to give another one to Cam Worf in 7th.
Yep.
Kieran Linders in 8th.
Yep.
I mean, Kieran bloody Linders. Honestly, Kieran Linders used to sell the maybe he still works for that swim thing where you lay on a float and
the Zen 8.
Zen 8. And he would come and we'd see him at the BMC camps because they were sponsored by him. And I would describe Kieran as he was like a neo pro, or honestly like a bottom barrel pro.
Yeah.
And then he tips up. I know he's won like maybe the challenge long before.
Right.
Tips up to Frankfurt. Bloody magnificent.
Yep.
Comes here, takes the top 10 at a world champs. Like, he's not young to the sport. He's been around a long time. He's just having a great run of things.
Yeah.
Final one then in 10th, Matt Hansen.
Yeah, that's his best result here in Kona, and he's one of the most experienced guys being here. I think it's huge for him, not only to some validation that he can go top 5 here, but also had the second fastest run of the day with 2:45.
I'm going to throw one more in there. Gregory Barnaby, because he has now given himself in 6th place a real good shot at the Ironman series.
We've mentioned a lot of other guys. I want to do one more little thing on Leon Chevalier. Leon has had a tough season, taking his T100 contract, and to be able to be kind of, I would say, maybe his confidence a little bit questioned, to come in here and get 4th place, have the second fastest bike of the day, and best his World Championship performance. That's something to be said.
Yep, absolutely.
I want one.
Please.
Retirement race. I want David McNamee in mine. David McNamee came 13th, having got off. He rode a 4:18. Think about all the other times we've been talking about. We've been talking about a 3:57. We're talking about 3:05s for that front group. And he rode what was that? What did I say? A 4:18, and he got himself up to 13th. He's podiumed here twice. I believe this is his last race. Kudos and a great career.
Yeah. All right. And before we get into hot takes there, Mark, can you update us on the Ironman Pro Series and what we know, where we think it's going, how yesterday impacted it?
Yeah, so I was up all last night. No, I wasn't at all. I texted Kat's dad and I said, look, John, you know my maths isn't very good. Can you help us out? And he gave us a absolutely brilliant synopsis on what this means for the rest of the year. And I'm just putting it up because Patrick Lange said, right, in the post-race press conference, no, I'm not going to go to Busselton, Western Australia.
Yeah, because that was my question to him.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so you asked.
Yeah, I asked him.
Right. And I think he just hadn't maybe done the maths. So if Matthew Marquardt goes to Taupo and finishes 16 minutes behind the winner, he moves ahead of Patrick Lange.
Wow.
If Gregory Barnaby goes to Taupo, finishes 15 minutes and 36 seconds behind the winner, he moves ahead of Patrick Lange. And if Christian Hogenhaug is 11:08, if Christian Hogenhaug can basically do it as well, he's not quite as well positioned. So there is a realistic opportunity. So the favourites currently is Matthew Marquardt and Gregory Barnaby. It's hard to pull those two apart. They're both pretty good at 70.3. Marquardt was actually really good in the year with a podium at Mont-Tremblant.
Yep, good job.
So now Patrick, if he finishes 20 minutes behind the leaders in Western Australia, he starts to kind of eke his points up and back.
Right.
If he finishes 10 minutes behind the leaders in Western Australia, Marquardt would have to go to Taupo and finish 5 minutes back, which against Hayden Wild, Leo Berger, and that seems impossible.
Right.
So Patrick Lange is looking at a situation where he either risks it and hopes that they all finish 16 minutes behind the leader in Taupo, or, which is a big gamble for me, that. And if he does that, he risks coming fourth in the series.
And how much is
That's
money?
$130,000 difference.
Cool.
Yep. And just a reminder, because a lot of people will say, well, why doesn't he just go to 70.3 world?
He's not qualified.
Right. So he can only go protect it and
At
improve his
Busso.
score at Busselton.
Which actually I think works out better for him in a way. Because in the form he's got right now, swimming really well, riding front pack well, running great, can he go to Busselton and finish within 10 minutes later?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And if he does that, he basically sews this series up.
Right.
But then he's got some wicked good sponsors. He's winning the Ironman World Champs for the third time. Conservatively, Pat, he probably made 600 grand yesterday.
I think we're pretty close. Yeah.
Doesn't really need another.
He doesn't
200 grand.
need the money, but are you giving away 130 for nothing,
No, and I think too, we've talked about what does the Ironman Pro Series look like in 5 or 10 years? And
Yeah.
to have your name down on the books as the first winner of it ever, I think could be a pretty cool thing and something he may regret if he lets pass him by.
So I think my kind of, it's almost a hot take prediction. Right now, winning the T100 series probably brings you more prestige than the Ironman series.
Yeah.
But I think in 5 years' time, when we talk about names of greats, no one's having T100 series on their resume.
Yeah.
Will it still be here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. I hope it is.
Yeah.
But it's a bit more on the tenterhooks. But in 5 years' time, the Ironman series could be really quite prestigious,
Right.
especially if this year Patrick Lange wins it, Kat Matthews wins it, Kat wins a world champs in years to come. Next year, another world champ wins it, adds the name and the credibility to it. Whereas this year, if a name like Gregory Barnaby, top athlete,
Right.
but he's not as prestigious, I think it would help. I would think it would help Ironman as
It'll
well.
help propel the series. Yeah.
So if I'm Ironman, I'm offering to pay for his flights and all that sort of stuff, making it as easy as possible for him.
Yeah,
To get
they've
to
had
Western
they've had this happen in mountain biking before, when they do a World Cup series, right? So in mountain biking, they have a one-off World Championship, but they also have a UCI World Cup series. I've been at races where the final athlete hasn't chosen to be in the final race, but they've flown that athlete over to it to be a part of the ceremony, right?
Well, yeah. So this would have to happen in Taupo, right?
Yeah. I mean, I look, if it's teeing up to be this way, I think they got to fly him over because it's also it's so imperative for the look and feel of the series. If Patrick Lange, if he does Busselton and he's going to be on the podium, they can't have a spot missing on that podium.
Yeah.
Well, because he even if he wins Busselton, he's not going to Taupo, but he could win the series.
Right.
Then what? How are they doing the prize giving?
Yeah. That's
No, they got to fly him to Taupo.
or
Yeah.
they do a awards banquet. Ironman just does an awards banquet.
What
or
flies
something.
people to a banquet? So this brings us on to the idea that I got off James Kunema, ex-pro, top bloke, South African, works for GTN. I think this is genius. They can't do it this year, but the idea was the Ironman Pro Series should start with the 70.3 worlds the year before. So the 2025, are we in 24? We're in 25 now. We're in 2024. So the 2025 Ironman Pro Series starts in Taupo. They can't do it now, but it starts in Taupo and it finishes in the Ironman World Champs. Because you're here, so whoever's going to win it is going to be here.
Yeah.
You're doing it alongside your world champs. You're crowning them at their massive banquet.
Yeah.
Just makes sense to me.
Think about how cooler it'll be too whenever they bring the men and the women back together and then they're crowning both an Ironman World Champion and then potentially either the same person or a different person for the Ironman Pro Series.
Yeah. To me, it's a great idea. Yeah. I honestly think they just didn't consider it. I hadn't thought about it. It's quite a niche idea, but actually when you say it, it's really obvious.
Yeah.
And plenty of sports have a season that start either side of the year. So Super Bowl.
Right.
Like so many sports have the year's championships. Actually, some of the races happened the year before.
Yeah.
Additional hot takes from the weekend.
The Norwegian method's dead again. It was back to life briefly in Frankfurt. It's dead again.
Yeah. Mikal's keeping it on life support with Rudy.
Yeah, that's like the Norwegian method part 2.
Yeah. Or the OG one, because Olav left, I guess, the nest, and he like kind of remolded and remade his.
This is what we've said, isn't it? So the Norwegian method started under Norwegian triathlon,
right?
And that's when Christian and Gustav got really, really
and that
good.
Was with McCall and
what's his name? The head of Norwegian,
Arlt.
Yeah, I mean he was the OG of like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then Olav's marketed the Norwegian method.
Yep.
But it didn't work again here.
Yeah. Poor Brad Culp. He's trying to sell books, name the Norwegian method, and it's just tanking in the New York Times bestsellers.
Look, it was a tough weekend, obviously for KB and Gustav, and I look at it and think, is this a time in their or an opportunity in their career to move on and to get a new coach? And it's been made public, obviously, that Olav's got a high profile job as the head coach of Uno X Professional Cycling, and that program is massive, and so it's going to be a huge undertaking.
I mean, how many riders is that?
All in, it'd be it's roughly 28 on the men's side and just under 20 on the women's.
So then he's the head coach of that. That's a lot of investment, a lot of time. If I'm one of those two, they've got a lot of loyalty to him. He's been around a long time, but I think I'm moving on.
Just seems like an opportunity or a point in their career to do that. So, I am suggesting they should, but they'll make their own decision.
They call McCall and they're like, "Hey, we made a mistake. We want you to coach us."
That's never happening. They could self-coach.
Yeah.
Those guys.
They've been doing
those
this
two are
long
so
enough.
into it. Yeah, they totally could.
Yeah.
What else do we see from the weekend that was a hot take?
The location of the race to change the venue up a little bit here in Kona.
Oh no, the other one was the location doesn't matter to the result.
Oh yeah, that was Caden Liotto's.
Yeah, so you take Sam Laidlow out of it. The top 4 were exactly the same. The next 4 athletes. Yeah, they're the same people
from Nice and here.
Yeah. I just think I think good athletes find a way to win or succeed on any course.
Right.
They're completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets quite warm in Nice, but the heat's not the oppressive factor. It's climbing, it's technical skills, which Kona has none of. It has a bit of steep ramps and stuff, but it's not proper thoroughbred climbing. The runs pan flat in Nice, like it's completely different. You're in a big city, you're on different continents, and yet the result is the same.
Right.
So the location doesn't change the result.
No.
And
world champions will be world champions, and people that perform and go top 5 will still perform and go top 5.
I agree. I think it's spot on, and I think it's been shown. I think it kind of got shown in the women's. Laura podiums there last year. The people that beat her aren't present, or they puncture, and she wins in Nice.
And Laura's been thereabouts here. So
yeah.
I got another hot take.
Yeah.
Let's change the run course here in Kona. I'd like to do 3 or 4 laps of a Leahy drive. And I think that
you could go out to the pit, couldn't you, and make it 2 laps or whatever.
Yeah. And I think what that does here is it alleviates the traffic issues that happen at night. So the highway right now, I think the last cyclist has to be in by 5 or 6 p.m. And so I think that's the that's the biggest thing for me here.
Yeah, but that even if you had it as one day, it alleviates some pressure from the town because they still get gripes and stuff like that. And it alleviates pressure, right? Because they can open the Queen K after the last rider gets back. So you can open the Queen K at 4 p.m. or whatever. Could that then give you enough sway with the locals to go back to 2 days? I don't think so.
I think it needs to be proposed, right?
Yeah.
Is there an option where we can do Friday and Sunday? I think the biggest issue that exists when you do that is it's for the Ironman staff. It effectively then is 3 full days. So
And you have to get the volunteers on board twice, etc.
yeah, and so there's multiple things at stake here, but I think that's an option for me if they want to look at doing it 2 days. I think our time spent here this week, it made me realize that while Kona is this weird place, I like having the race here. There's something about it here that I like. And we were both in Nice this year. Something about it here just seems a little bit better.
It's just this legacy, iconic nature of the whole thing. And we as a sport can't get away from it in the near future. People want to be in Kona. And I get it. It's nice here and everything. I'm a little bit warmed, Pat, to be honest. I'm a little bit bored of being clammy every day. It's expensive. It's expensive to get to, but it just holds this status.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that while the pros would be the first to say, yep, I'm open to moving it around, I'm open to trying some different things out, it's the age groupers that are like, it's got to be here. And what blew my mind here was while we were in Nice, I didn't see the family support of 7 or 8 people from a family following the one person that was racing. And here you'd see families wearing all the same shirt, cheering on, Bobby. It was just so much larger, and the scale here was just so much greater.
Yeah. Is Patrick Lange rapidly becoming the king of Kona?
Yeah, 100%. I think I don't know if you've said it yet, but my hot take yesterday after the race was if the race never moves from Kona and they go to Nice, are we talking Patrick Lange as a 4-time world champion?
So Patrick's second last year. If that race was Nice, so if that race was Hawaii Kona, would he have won? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think he'd be knocking on 4 now.
Sam Laidlow, not to take away from his world title he won last year, but like this course and this atmosphere is kind of made for Patrick.
The heat, everything like that.
Yeah.
I think we'd be talking about a 4-time champion.
Yeah.
And that's wild.
Yep.
And that list is short, very short.
And in the modern era,
it's non-existent.
Yeah.
So I just told Talbot that we had an audio file mess up. So and he forgave me. So we're all good.
Oh. There you go.
Kyle was more worried about telling Talbot than he was the 3-time Iron World champion.
Whatever.
We wasted his time in the heat.
I'm going to have to owe Crowy a lot of beers for the rest of my life. So.
And he can drink beers as well, so that could be expensive.
Yeah.
What else are we taking away from our trip here? I've loved it. I will say a big takeaway. We received a lot of love. A lot of you guys have said a lot of really nice things. It's nice, and it's nice to hear that you enjoy it because kind of is the reason we do it. We all like the idea that it gives people an hour of something to do with their week that's easy listening. Maybe not that easy, probably quite stressful at times. But thank you for coming and telling us that. It's been wonderful. The live show was a great turnout.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed taking.
You got a job with Ironman, I think, Mark, after bike check-in.
The pro bike check-in cameo, MC work.
For 3 hours, you were just on the freaking ball.
Don't tell Ironman.
You were working the crowd. Like you had the crowd absolutely roaring. You were pointing up to people in the balcony at the restaurant, getting their opinions and questions on stuff. It was tremendous.
The best part, I think, was Paul Kay and a couple other the Ironman commentators came over and they were a little nervous that Mark was stealing their job.
Yeah, right. I could do that for 3 hours all the time. Maybe an hour on race day. What I cannot do is what Joanne does. Paul Smith, you are an Ironman. And she does that all day.
Yeah.
And then it's the constant patter.
Yeah.
It needs a bit of lightening up.
Yeah. So I like doing that the day before. Give them the day off before a big Super Bowl day for them.
Yeah. Happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I want what Paul Gay's getting paid though. But yeah. No, I really enjoyed it. And actually very grateful for Ironman to trust us to do it.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah.
And we all know their brand sells off this. This is the challenge. People overcoming this. Look at what it means to them. Look how so-and-so's done all this work to get here. And it's all very serious. But sport should be fun as well.
Right.
And I like that they're adding more of this, through Aaron for the win on socials and stuff.
Right.
It's more light-hearted. Sport is fun kind of stuff. Really resonates with me.
Yep. I agree. When I stepped out, I don't remember what all hot takes that you guys talked about.
I think we got it all covered.
We've got it covered.
Yeah.
I mean, in summary, most of the guys overbiked.
Yep.
Patrick Lange is the smartest athlete in triathlon right now.
Yep.
With the engine to back it up.
Yep.
And it was a pretty surprising result all around. But I mean, okay, kudos to Laidlaw for finishing.
Yep. Kudos for Steve McKenna for finishing.
Oh my God.
When we saw him on the Queen K.
What time did he do? He did a 4-hour 20 marathon or something?
Yeah.
Oh, Steve was a broken man.
4:27 and grinded it out.
Mate, about 18K, Pat. He couldn't run a step.
Went 9:35.
He was done. Fair play finishing.
Yeah.
He said to me, we were like, you kind of need to decide now if you're dropping out, because the further out you go, you ain't getting back. And he was like, I just think it will hurt more to not finish.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
Hats off.
I imagine his legs hurt more this morning, but you know. Anyway, to wrap up a wonderful Kona experience, I'll hand you over to Kyle, because whilst we've ripped on him for this audio file mistake, me and Pat turned to me and said, we can't really say anything because all he has to point out is we've done absolutely fuck all week. So the man that's pulled it all together, sorted all of the finances out, done basically everything for us. Kyle, close us out on our Kona journey.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Raw for supporting us, as well as TeleRx, Waterfall Bank, and Bicycle for sponsoring our Kona series. Thank you to each and every one of you that listened for every episode. I know we put out a lot of content this week, so hopefully you guys want to go back and listen to some of the things that we put out or watch them. We have now officially, I guess, fleshed out our YouTube channel, so we will be uploading more regularly on YouTube. So that being said, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys here in a couple weeks.